This is the third and final part of the series on how to identify the lost tribes of Israel from 2 Esdras 1340 to 46. Number 3. Duration of the trip. The book of Esdras doesn't tell us the mileage covered, but does give us the next best thing, the duration. To do a calculation of the distance covered, I've made several assumptions, which I list below. A. The migration was on foot as described in part 2 of this series, since there were no cars or planes back then. B. There were women, some perhaps pregnant, and children in their ranks. C. They were a very large group, both human and livestock. So, transportation via boats was out of the question, as it would take years to build enough of them to ship everyone. D. They always rested on the Sabbath day. Their reason for leaving was to keep their laws in a peaceful place, so it is logical to assume they were already keeping those same laws. E. It takes a really fit guy 6 to 7 minutes to walk a kilometer. The rest of us will take up to 15 minutes to do so. Might take 20 minutes with children. F. They would walk for maybe 6 hours a day, or as much as a child could perhaps tolerate. So let's do the maths. 4 kilometers an hour for 6 hours equals 24 kilometers a day. 24 kilometers for 6 days, 144 kilometers a week. 144 kilometers a week will cover 11,232 kilometers over 1.5 years. Since they were walking, they would have been slowed down further by the presence of the young children, the sick, and the elderly. In my estimate, they could still have traveled up to 9,000 kilometers in that time. This distance would still be almost twice the distance from northern Iraq, such as Al-Badi to Dublin in Ireland, assuming they could cross the Alps on their way. It's also twice the distance to Stockholm in Sweden, and 4 times the distance to Moscow, assuming these desert nomads would brave the frigid temperatures in the latter 2 destinations. Besides, they would need to cross several major seas on some of these trips, and the Book of Esdras said nothing about such. To those who claim that Arsareth is America, from the calculation I made above, it is physically impossible to move children and elderly from northern Iraq to America in 1.5 years in 722 BC. Teleportation, of course, wasn't an option. If you think my calculations are unrealistic, consider the 2012 story about a man, Senad Hadzic, who walked 5,650 kilometers from Bosnia to Mecca in 10 months. He had a 2.5-month customs stop at Turkey and Jordan and was carrying a 20-kilo backpack all trip long. At his rate, he would have traveled 11,300 kilometers in 1.5 years with a 5 months break in between. By crossing the Euphrates at its northern end, the Israelites would have walked nearly 8,000 kilometers through several countries to Uidash, Judah, without having to cross any ocean. That is 3,000 kilometers short of the Muslim pilgrim walk mentioned above. This route would have taken them through the heathen territories of Ammon, Moab, and Edom. But they took this counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country. 2 Esdras 13:41. Is the passage telling us they passed through and beyond these heathen nations to uninhabited territories? Interestingly, this migratory pattern, for the most part, overlaps with the historical migration of the Bantu people into West Africa. The Center for the Study of Political Islam further estimates that the distance from Egypt to Nigeria was about a year during the Roman era. Now, why is all this important? The children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are still in diaspora and will only return to Israel when the time of the Gentiles is fulfilled. Luke 21:24. When the Israelites begin to recognize who they are, then we know that the end is upon us. I believe the sons of Jacob will return to the worship of the true God and reject the worship of wood and stone. They will reject the mark of authority of the Antichrist, thus provoking the ire of the end-time beast. Then the beast will make war on the sons of Israel, and only then will the Messiah return. But then, what if my calculation is wrong? What if the Celts or the British are the true Israelites? And what if the Queen of England is truly a descendant of King David and ruling in his stead? What if the children of Shem are not colored as numerous historians have borne witness to? But what if they are? What if the Lapps are truly Canaanites and the Hittites truly Chinese? It all sounds so confusing. God's plan for identifying people, however, is this. Each tree is known by its fruit. Luke 6:44. The fruit of the Israelites helps to identify him, but that is a discussion for another day. Until then, I have a word for anyone who thinks he is an Israelite. Thank the God of your fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who has chosen to make known his grace and mercy towards you. If you enjoyed this content, please check out our other videos, like and subscribe.